Just thought I'd start out with the genuine snake oil that I was able to order from Amazon. It's a skin emollient. It doesn't do anything but that. But you can get real snake oil, and you can get a whole lot of other things. And in fact, weight loss frauds are really nothing new. Go back to the 19th century and you can find it. The funny thing is, back then you can also find gimmicks to help people gain weight. You know, the lament of the woman who was too skinny and she can't believe the miracle weight gain device that she was able to buy or drink or eat. And it doesn't change. You know, we have these weight loss belts. You recognize these? I remember seeing those when I was growing up. They were kind of fading out then, but you could buy them at Sears and Roebuck, these, you know, exercise belts. Had anybody ever seen those in real life?
I've used them.
You've used them?
Back in the day. Yeah.
Wow, wow. You know, they do nothing but shake you up. but they were there. The Smithsonian had a whole exhibition on weight loss frauds over the centuries. And so now people seem to like to have belts. So we have modern belts that you can get, and we have easy peasy, lemon squeezy exercise devices that'll help you just work the fat off. But how about stuff that's being promoted now? You have HCG, which when I wrote something with my friend Will Hignett for the Your Weight Matters campaign on HCG, I got a number of, kind of annoyed emails that I would say bad things about this HCG that had been such a boon to these people. Anybody else have much experience with HCG? So you can find HCG, you can find doctors, pharmacists dispensing it, and it's utterly bogus. The Obesity Society has done a position statement on HCG and reviewed all of the literature, and there's no evidence that it is safe and effective for weight management purposes. You have our friend Dr. Oz, who I know elicits some really strong reactions, promoting things on his show like Garcinia, like raspberry ketones. And then if you want, you can go to the Kardashians and get weight loss miracles from them. Burn it up and flush it out. And that whole flush it out thing, really, I don't know, it kind of bugs me, all of these detox diets that tell people that they can flush the bad stuff and detoxify their bodies. Well, you have a liver, and that's the liver's job to detoxify your body, and it works perfectly well. Laxative regimens really don't do much of anything to detoxify your body, but there's a whole industry around juicing and detox diets. Not surprisingly, Dr. Oz has a miracle detox diet, and lots of other people do, and it surprises me. It kind of offended me one time when I was in a pharmacy and looking at some of this garbage, and a pharmacist, one of my brothers in pharmacy, comes up to me and starts talking to me about the wonders of a cleanse, and I'm thinking, I had a shower this morning. I don't need a cleanse. Are you trying to tell me something about my deodorant? But the fact is that these products are widely used despite any evidence of safety and efficacy. Now, I've gone out and counted bodies and how many people have used them, and people are a little bit reticent to own up. And someone was telling me that their father had been, or a relative had been taking these for years and years and years. But that's not usually the case. Most people will have these bogus products kind of sitting on their shelf, gathering dust. They try it, they might make them shaky, they don't get much of an effect. But they try them, and these people who sell these frauds make their money off of trial and not repeat. If you're a consumer marketer, your sales are composed of, classic marketing is trial and repeat. And when you're trying to come up with new products, there are standardized ways that you can see, based on this concept, if I promise people this about my product, and put it this way, how many people will try it? And then if they take it home after they try it, how many people are going to buy it a second time? And in this kind of business, it's all trial and very, very little repeat, simply because they uniformly disappoint people. People feel suckered, but there are enough people who are desperate enough for people like Hydroxycut to keep coming out with a new version that, well, maybe I ought to try that. And they sell lots of money and make lots of money off of lots of trial and very, very little repeat purchases. So what I would say is that there are two factors that are at the root of weight loss frauds and why we keep seeing them. One is magical thinking. Magical thinking is the notion that that wishing will make it so that well, so-and-so took that and she said it worked for her, and so it must work. And I kind of, what have I got to lose? Nothing else is working for me. And it is a means for coping with a sense of powerlessness. People go for magical thinking in the face of desperate circumstances where you really don't appear to have a lot of control over your fate. And people in obesity keep being told, this is your responsibility. You ought to be able to do something about it. And try and try and try and try. Well, nothing's working, so I may as well try this. Can't hurt. The other factor that lies at the root is greed. People who do this, and when I was working on an initiative aimed at kind of tamping down some of this fraud, we looked at some of the companies, and the same individuals will keep doing this, and it's the most money they've ever made in their life, because they'll pop up, they'll sell this stuff, and maybe if they're really successful, they'll be successful enough to get noticed by the FTC and get told to cease and desist, and they just disappear and go away. Now, FTC, who enforces this stuff, will sometimes really squash somebody, but more likely than not, it's a game of cat and mouse or a game of whack-a-mole where more companies just pop up to replace the last ones that were there. How do they get by with it? They get by with it because of how supplements are regulated in the United States under something called DSHEA, and that's just an acronym that stands for the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. And if you see this little thing up here, this happened back in 1994 when FDA, really not knowing that they were going to start a storm, was going to have a hearing on regulating an obscure dietary supplement that some safety concerns had been raised about. And this grassroots supplement industry got whipped up into a frenzy. They had everybody writing their congressmen saying, the FDA is trying to take away our vitamins. And if we don't act now, you won't be able to get your vitamin D, your vitamin C. You won't be able to get any of that stuff because the FDA wants to take it away. And the FDA can be a pain in the neck, granted, but they're pretty methodical in what they do. And I know people who were working there at the time. There was no such thing intended, but it became a wonderful opportunity for the supplement industry because they got this bill passed which basically told FDA, hands off. The only way you can do anything about any of those supplements is when bodies stop piling up in the morgue, okay? And if there are enough people hurt, then you can act if if there's a demonstrated safety problem. But these supplements don't have to prove that they're safe before they market them. They don't have to prove that they're effective. They have to have studies on file, they say, but nobody really can challenge what they've got. They have to have studies on file back in their offices that give them some suggestion that there's a reason for it to support bodily function or whatnot. And they have to put a label on their product. Have anybody heard the radio commercials for this stuff when they dash off this? These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure, or prevent any disease. It's amazing how fast they can say it. But the rationale of this is, no, they can't promote it to treat a disease like high blood pressure. But they can sell it to promote normal blood pressure. Now that's a fine distinction that I don't really understand how you... It's more rationalization than anything that I can understand. But it is the law. And so you have these products out there, not saying that they're intended to treat obesity. They say they're intended to promote normal weight or healthy weight. So FDA really can't do anything until people start dying, which happened in the case of ephedra and at one point hydroxycut. So advertising fraud goes to the FTC. The FTC is the Federal Trade Commission, and they oversee everything that is sold in the United States for any purpose. They oversee all advertising, truth in advertising, and if people tell lies, imagine that, lies in advertising, it happens. Lies in advertising do not work to build brands, but they can work to get people to buy something once. That goes to the FTC, and the FTC has to pick and choose what they enforce in the realm of fraudulent advertising. Weight loss fraud is a relative priority for them, but even so, there are so many companies doing so many things to get your money for weight loss fraud that they can't go after every one. And so they have a campaign of education for consumers, and state attorneys general will occasionally take action, and FTC will take action against egregious offenders or big offenders. They went after Bayer Healthcare with some one-a-day supplements aimed at weight loss to try and make an example of them, and they extracted a pretty big penalty from them in that way. But they have to be they have to pick and choose because it's expensive to do this, and oftentimes the companies just kind of dry up and go away when they start chasing them, and they go count their money in Barbados or wherever. Why does it matter? It matters because these products trivialize obesity. They feed on, they reinforce the impression that this is a condition that stupid people bring on themselves, that is the result of flawed decision making, bad decisions, and that it's not really a serious health condition. Because if it were a serious health condition, why wouldn't FDA be regulating this stuff? I mean, I've heard consumers, and I've interviewed consumers in market research, where they say, well, it couldn't be sold in a drugstore if it weren't safe and effective, could it? They don't even read that disclaimer. But more importantly, it diverts people from options that can actually help. It diverts people from going to consulting a registered dietitian who could actually help them with better dietary strategies that would help them achieve their best possible health. It diverts them from seeking out an obesity medicine physician who really could, with a comprehensive approach to obesity, help them. It allows people to delay and pursue strategies that are ineffective. And in the process of trying all this stuff and getting burned yet again, it brings around something called learned helplessness, and the dog's up here because there are these classic experiments where you shock the dog randomly and teach him that no matter what he does, he's going to get shocked, and so he stops learning to avoid painful stimulus. He just keeps on doing bad stuff as well as suffering the shocks. It's learned helplessness. Well, how can you recognize it? And this is sort of the meat of the presentation. And I'm going to try and leave some time at the end so that we can discuss or take any questions that you have. The FTC, because they know they can't tackle everybody, they've published really clear stuff about what are the red flags for weight loss fraud. And in fact, they've identified 7 red flags for weight loss scams. And we're going to kind of go through this list. First is lose 2 pounds per week or more without dieting. A classic sort of claim, not all that uncommon. No diet, no gym. You hear it on the radio, you see it on the internet. Your spam folder is filled up with these emails offering you something that will let you lose 2 pounds or more per week. You don't have to diet, you don't have to change anything you're doing. Well, on the face of it, based upon the research that FTC did, if somebody claims this, they are a scam. There's really nothing available without a prescription that can make that claim. Red flag number 2, how many times have you ever heard somebody say you lose weight with this no matter what you eat, right? Red flag number 3, permanent weight loss. Take the pounds off and keep it off permanently. Well, nothing whatsoever does that. And it's really kind of a travesty that people would suggest that. Oddly enough, at the FDA hearing a couple weeks ago for a new treatment for obesity, an expert panel hearing, the chairman of the panel said, you know, I have some concern about labeling this drug for chronic weight management because somebody could be taking it 4 years after they started taking it and not be losing weight anymore. And why would they keep taking it? Fortunately, that was the chair of the expert committee that said that. It's like gobsmacked. But fortunately, there was an obesity medicine expert, Sue Yanofsky, who, before the discussion progressed much further, said to, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, but I just do want to point out that 4 years, that's how obesity care works. 4 years after you've started on a regimen, if you've lost weight and maintained it, you want to keep taking it so that you won't regain that weight. So even smart people can think that effective weight loss ought to be permanent and shouldn't require continued therapy. It's really tough to get people to accept the reality that obesity is a chronic condition. It is something that, just like high blood pressure, just like high cholesterol, it needs chronic care. And so this lie is very appealing. But it is, on the face of it, a lie. If FTC sees a campaign that's getting any traction with consumers, they will go after it. Then there's a caveat to this one, but this list was written in 93, 94, in the 90s. Blocking carbs, fats, and calories is a common weight loss scam, like this FATFO eggplant extract, blocking the fat no matter what you eat. There is one non-prescription product, the only non-prescription product that's been approved by FDA, Orlistat, which actually does block 20% of the fat that you eat, doesn't block all of the fat you eat, and they don't claim that no matter what you eat, you'll lose weight, because I've been taking it for about 10 years, and that's not the case, but it's a little bit of help that's well proven with the evidence base. But these fat blockers, chitosan was a product that claimed to block fat. There are things that claim to block carbs, and it's fiction. Safely lose a lot of weight. Who's seen the ad of don't take this if you need to lose less than 50 pounds because it could be dangerous for you. You'd lose too much weight. You know, for somebody who's engaged in a little bit of magical thinking, that's a very appealing false promise. Works for everyone, guaranteed, 100% money back guarantee, lose 5 pounds in 7.5 days. This is, on its face, something that FTC will go after. Not for everybody who says it, because there are a ton of people out there saying it, but anybody who's generating any traction with consumers, if they're saying it, they'll get a notice from FTC. And then red flag number 7 is the what I'll call the fashion accessories for weight loss, whether it's patches, cream. FTC mocked up this Slim Ear, which I thought was pretty cute, but it wouldn't surprise me if somebody's selling it. You saw the belt early on, creams to rub away the fat, belts, wraps, patches. There's the Sensa patch, which has made gotten a lot of attention. That's red flag number 7. So, what can we do about it? Recognize it for what it is. As much traction as sort of quietly some of these scams get, where people, you know, they're kind of embarrassed when they buy these products. There are also a lot of people out that they're really ticked about these things. I mean, it really annoys them. And it is not futile to speak up and call it out. When weight loss scams come up in social media, people do call it out. People respond. I know from the things that I write on it, people respond to this. And attorneys general, if they can make some political hay for protecting consumers with something like this and get attention, they'll do it. And even more recently, you had senators calling a hearing and asking Dr. Oz to come in and talk to him. Now, OAC had a little something to do with this, because initially it looked like they were going to have a hearing on weight loss scams and have Dr. Oz as an expert witness. And we talked with the committee staff a couple days before the hearing and told them, we really wish you'd talk to us before you invited him to be an expert witness, because he's actually like a top offender. And if you recall the headlines, it wound up that Senator McCaskill really grilled him and kind of threw him under the bus. And social media just took off with this. After some of the things, that particular post that I did was one of the top 4 that I've ever written in terms of the number of people that read it, retweeted it, and shared it on Facebook. These frauds offend people. They just tick people off. So, that is it. We're open for questions. I wouldn't bet my life on getting the DeShay law changed, honestly. For one thing, Congress really isn't passing any laws right now. And number 2, if you go back to when that law got passed, there are so many pyramid schemes in dietary supplements that you have moms and pops that are making nickels and dimes off of dietary supplements, and they bury their legislators in letters to say, make the FDA keep their hands off my vitamins.
So how do you know if it's a safe vitamin then? If you're going to the store and you want to get, vitamins because after surgery, and maybe these others don't agree with me, so I'm at the store trying to figure out what's safe.
There is an industry group. Well, first of all, you have reputable vitamin makers who are selling, who are developing products with integrity to meet the needs of people with bariatric surgery. And you really want to stick to responsible marketers. There is a Council for Responsible Nutrition, CRN, which is an industry group that established itself to, within the dietary product space, to kind of set a standard for more reputable products and stand up for that better standard. But you raise a good point, and so you look for red flags, and you look for products. I mean, this DSHEA, does anybody else? I mean, this DSHEA disclaimer just seems like nonsense to me. We're not treating a disease, but we're promoting a lack of disease. I mean, how is that not just semantic nonsense? But providing vitamin D is obviously not trying to treat a disease. It's just providing dietary supplementation that's needed. One of the things that you can look for is there's a supplement facts label. And if the supplement facts label says that there's no established requirement for this ingredient, which is what it will say for most of these products that are being sold for therapeutic reasons and pretending they're not, there's a clue for you right there. Nobody's proven that there's a need for this. So why are you taking it?
Question for you. Have you looked at the sales of these products since really the internet's taken off? Do you see a lot more sales now that people can be at home and you get these little ads that pop up right on the computer screen? Is there more sales now than there ever were?
You know, back when I was at GSK, we tried to track the sales. The sales are very, very diffuse because of that, and so they are hard to track. But the industry, there are industry reports that attempt to estimate it, and it rises and falls. The sale of dietary supplements for weight loss kind of peaked with the product that was recalled, my brain block, ephedra. Because that ephedra really got so much traction, and that's probably why some of those deaths got reported, that then gave FDA the latitude to withdraw the product from the market and have it demanded. So at that point, I think that it was like a $2 billion industry, and now it kind of bumps around at about $1 billion, roughly. But those estimates, you know, I would not stake my life on those estimates because lots of people are selling stuff out of their garage. It's, you know, it's a very kind of shady, a kind of, you know, grassroots sort of sales thing. Other questions? Yeah.
What would you recommend as a response to the sincerely well-meaning friend or family member who comes up to you and says, I just heard on NPR, it's cinnamon. Just take cinnamon 10 times a day and you'll lose all the weight you want. So I often get people who truly care about me, but they recommend the latest fad that they just heard about.
Yeah, that, you know, that's, I'm getting too close to that other microphone, I think. That's a challenging one, but you know, probably you're in the best position. There are different strategies you can take. One is thank you very much and just wait for them to go away because they're just, you know, not that helpful and you don't have to deal with them that much. If you have to deal with them that much, it's worth saying, you know, I read the article about cinnamon in Your Weight Matters. And because actually I did write one about cinnamon and diabetes, and there is some research going on in that. It's not going to cure diabetes, and it's not going to make you lose all the weight you want. And I think I'd just say that. You know, there's no evidence that's true. I mean, I wish it were. You know, wouldn't it be nice? You know, and you can play the Beach Boys, but it's just not true. It's just wishful thinking, and it's just exploitation, is really what it is. Any other questions? Comments? Dr. Sharma.
Do you see the ethical
You know, I think when I was at GSK, you probably know, we petitioned FDA to say these products that say that they're for weight loss are actually violating the DSHEA Act by purporting to treat a disease, which is obesity. And we petitioned them and said, this is a disease, these products aren't supposed to be used to treat a disease, and in the case of obesity, this should not be allowed, and we're asking you to act against it. And they kind of considered it and batted it around, and the dietary supplement industry lobbied their congressman, who turned around and called FDA and said, please don't do anything with this because this is just big pharma trying to protect its interest in selling weight loss pills to poor housewives who want to fit into a bikini, and we shouldn't allow this, and la da 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 da. And so it didn't do a lot. My thought is that the biggest, you know, the biggest hope would be attorneys general. I mean, how many of you are familiar with Governor O'Donnell? What was the governor in Virginia? Yeah, and what industry did he get bribed by?
It was some magical pill that was made from tobacco in some way that would do all kinds of things really.
So there is opportunity where there's clear-cut consumer fraud that an attorney general or an ambitious prosecutor can call it out and make a difference. I don't anticipate. Pardon?
They got called out and went to federal court, not the product itself, but because of the conspiracy. The company relocated from Virginia to, I believe, Florida, and changed the name. They're still out here marketing the same stuff.
And they do a lot of that. They do a lot of that. But really, you know, the industry exists because of the magical thinking. And so, you know, regulators can push on the greed and fraud side of it, but just as important is the education that says there are obesity medicine physicians, there are real treatments available for obesity, and there's real help available. And as people become less desperate, and when we get to a point where we have better treatments than we have today, I mean, we have some good treatments, but we don't have what we'd like by any means. We need a lot more research and a lot more options so that we can treat obesity just as effectively as we treat hypertension. And when we have more options, then the demand for the bogus stuff is not going to be as great. And, you know, and some of that's going to go away. We need to push on both sides of the formula, I think. Yeah.
So I've just been looking at this friend on Facebook that has had bariatric surgery, and she's going on and has been for a while now about plexus. Have you heard of plexus? I mean, here's like 1 year anniversary, you know, what a fantastic year, and I'm fairly certain it's a pyramid scheme, but I'm not sure. And she's promoting it to all of us.
I have had people mention plexus to me, and I've had them tell me that they have their friend who's promoting it. Is anybody familiar with the details of plexus?
I know they're now $1 million company.
Yeah, I mean,
They're up to millions. My friend does it. I did a 5-day plexus experiment.
how did that go?
I made it to day 3 and I felt really cracked out. I mean, it's a stimulant. Of course, they're buying into the success and they're creating a branding image. But whether or not that product is successful, I mean, the influence could be that, you know, placebo pill because of the image they present. You know, it's really not the product necessarily, but the image that is presented in the export network in a way. It's just, long term, is that practical to spend $125, $140 a month on a product?
Well, I think more to the point, what is it that killed ephedra? Enough people took it that enough people had heart attacks and died that it got the attention that said, this is not a reasonable risk-benefit ratio. I mean, it's very, very modestly effective. if at all. But it certainly does raise your heart rate. And in a population of people with cardiovascular disease, this is why new obesity drugs have such a tough time getting into the market, because they actually have to prove that they're not going to kill people if enough people take it. These supplements don't. And you can get hopped up on caffeine and have some stimulant effect, but you have more undesired effect than you have desired effect. Anybody else?
I was just curious, you were mentioning about responsible manufacturers. Is there a directory of the good guys?
CRN.
CRN?
Council for Responsible Nutrition. And I have friends who are members of CRN, and that's their intent. They're still human beings. There are probably some flawed companies in there, but I think they try to be a cut above in terms of nutrition products.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Can we expect to see more regulation in providers contracting with these companies? Because the Plexus in particular is one person I know of is in school to become a registered dietitian, and I know as a counselor I cannot align myself with any kind of company and try to sell a product to my clients, but I see these dietitians getting away with it all the time.
Did everybody hear that question? Can we expect more regulation in terms of the providers that might recommend these products, whether they be registered dietitians or physicians or handing out HCG? And I think the opportunity I see there is that you have now a growing group of professionals who have gotten the board certification for obesity medicine. The American Board of Obesity Medicine just announced that 40% more people are going to take the exam this year than took it last year. And as there are more and more legitimate, well-trained experts in obesity, then there's going to be less inclination to go to the quack on the corner, because you can find better resources. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is working on an accreditation for dietitians in obesity. They have a certificate now that they can get, but this is going to be an exam that they have to take to get an accreditation, and within a few years that will be. And it'll be tougher for somebody to hold their accreditation while dispensing suspect products like that. And I'm getting the wrap it up sign, so this will be our last question.
There are a lot of companies who manufacture things, bicycles, step things to use in our home. Are they a fan or a fraud?
Well, you heard Jim Hill talk about how you don't have to exercise to lose weight, but if you want to maintain good health for the long term, you really better incorporate some physical activity. And so, folks who are really offering good products to help people be physically active, a stepping machine or whatever, that's great. But then there's a lot of bogus stuff that is never going to be a long-term regimen for anybody, that they're just taking, in my opinion, just taking people's money for no real long-term benefit. The other thing that troubles me about exercise, since you mentioned it, and this is a little bit of a pet peeve, how many of you think that exercise is a real effective way to lose weight, that you can sweat off the pounds in the short term? Not since yesterday, and that's my impression. Even the experts on exercise say that at best, exercise is modestly effective by itself for losing weight. But 90% of Americans think that it's a very effective way to lose weight. And I think that sets people up for failure, because they go to the gym and think, I'm going to sweat off all these pounds, and the pounds don't get sweated off, and they say, there must be something wrong with me.
But with water aerobics, they will tell you that. With water aerobics, when you go in there, a responsible water aerobics instructor that's been trained will say, you will improve
And that's a very ethical way to go. Thank you very much.